Hello, Mustangs. This is Miss Loza with another book talk. I'm going to share 5 books that are true stories. These are unexpected nonfiction books that will hook you. The first book is a graphic novel. It's called Seek You, A Journey Through American Loneliness by Kristen Rathke. This book is absolutely stunning. It's she talks about her own struggles with loneliness, and she walks you through different scenarios, different studies about loneliness. She explores kind of like our unique American like individualism and how that could lead to loneliness. I read this book in one sitting. It's absolutely beautiful. I highly recommend it. Next is The Woman They Could Not Silence. One Woman, Her Incredible Fight for Freedom, and the Men Who Tried to Make Her Disappear. This is by Kate Moore. She wrote the book called Radium Girls. This is a story of Elizabeth Packard. She lived in Illinois and the story takes place right as the Civil War was happening in our country, and the author mirrors her experience and the starting of the Civil War. This woman was a women's rights activist. She was an abolitionist at the time, and her husband just thought she was getting a little bit too, big for her britches. So he had her committed into an insane asylum, and he actually cited that she was suffering from the illness of women's rights. So one night, somebody threw a hatchet through her window, and they literally just like kidnapped her. And she ended up in this asylum against her will. And she started to research laws. She organized the women who were also in there unjustly just because their husbands wanted them committed. So this is a really fascinating story about a woman who fought for herself and fought for her own rights. So I highly recommend this one also. The next book is called How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith. This is an absolutely beautiful book, my favorite book of 2021. This is a reckoning with the history of slavery across America. Clint Smith is a writer. He's also a poet, and you can tell by the way he writes this book. So he starts in his hometown of New Orleans, and he drives cross country to visit every single monument or memorial to slavery. So he visits Monticello. He visits monuments in New York where where slaves were buried, different places in Wall Street that slaves built. He goes to Confederate burial grounds, and he has conversations with people, and he reckons with our histories past with slavery. This is a very, very timely book. It's absolutely beautiful. I highly recommend this one also. This book is another one of my favorites from last year. It's called Hidden Valley Road, Inside the Mind of an American Family by Robert Kolker. This is a family who had 10 children, and the book kind of spans the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And in this family, 6 out of the 10 children, all of them men, ended up with schizophrenia. So this family ended up being studied by the National Institutes of Health, and a lot of what is known today about this very serious disease is due to this family and their, ability or agreeing to be studied. It takes you through each brother and their kind of struggle and descent into this illness and how it affects everyone, the entire family. And the story, I just couldn't put this book down. It's so good. And it's interesting to see how little is still known about this disease, but even less was known when this family was suffering from this. So I highly recommend this book also. And finally, a book that I'm reading now, it's called Rising Out of Hatred, The Awakening of a Former White Nationalist, and this is by Eli Slaslow. This is a story of Derek Black. He was a young man who was basically raised in the white power movement. His dad was a very infamous white nationalist. And from a very young age, he was seen as a rising star in this movement. And he goes to a very small liberal arts college, and he kind of makes friends with people from all races. He ends up dating a girl who is Jewish, and then one day he's outed as this white nationalist. So it takes us through his upbringing and his experiences at college and his internal battles with what he was raised believing, and how he comes to this realization that what he was taught at home was extremely wrong. And this is really a redemption story, but it's also a glimpse into how these ideas get started. And it came out in 2018, and it's very interesting to read now in 2022. So when I'm done with it, it'll be available for checkout. So that's it. I hope you guys stop by the library. And if you want to know more about any of these books, or you want some recommendations for any nonfiction books, please stop by and let me know. Bye, Mustangs.